In this session, we are going to basically learn about how do we handle the requirement in real life situation. And this is a part of Anisan training book, and here you see the list of high level requirements are uh, can be provided. And then what we have done is the requirement attributes. We assigned attributes to the requirement. This is a unique ID, the requirements and sub requirements arising from the parent requirements. That's the parent and child requirement. And attributes, what we have selected here is a Moscow, that is again prioritization, and the status and the priority, high, medium, low. Okay, so here it is, for example, if it is a login convention, new user, existing user, in the Moscow must have high priority. If you see the statement, email statement or the hard copy, so the customer will, these are the two options. So providing the statements is important, but you can have two ways of two options to provide. One is by email or by the hard copy. So what is it? It is should have. So it means the requirement is important, but you have option, you can use it as per your discretion or implement as per need. Okay, so there is no hard and fast that you must implement in a particular way. Okay, if you see it is mentioned here, check clearance. Check clearance, if it is local, then it is mentioned as a 24H. If it is outstation, 48H. These are the basically standards. It is a must to have. It means the requirement must be implemented in similar way, because this is the way the check will be read by the machine, and this is high priority. Then comes to your requirement attributes. Okay, in the requirement attributes, if you see here, let me just increase the value. You can use Excel sheet to create the requirement catalog. Simply, basically, in the catalog, what we have done is that we have defined the requirement attributes, and the requirement is specified as per those attributes or explained here. Like, for example, the business service or the name, online banking solution, service description, to provide online facility to bank customers to carry out different types of banking transactions without the need of physical visit to the branches. Linked business outcome, increased productivity, reduction in the transaction cost, and increased market penetration. So these are the perceived benefits, right? Customer worldwide using the internet services. So the bank customer, who could be any part of the who will be who can access the solution from any part of the world. Requirement ID, it is mentioned, this is a unique ID. Requirement use case, again that is again unique ID associated with the use case. Brief description, user registration mandatory, criticality must to have. And if you see category, business, type, functional, benefit, again 1 to 5, considering 5 is the highest, so it is 5, it is mentioned. Cost and effort, it is mentioned as a 3. Value index 1.67. This value index you have to calculate. We will consider that into the next session, another session. Approved, yes. Status testing. If you remember this, any requirement, if it is a must to have, means you have to implement the way it is. For example, the user registration, so there is no alternate way of implementing the requirements, so it is must to have. Same thing like a change password, you must implement in a particular way. Okay, and all these requirements are must to have, right? And there is one is should have. What is basically it is talking about to provide the bank online facility to the bank customers to carry out different types of banking transaction. Okay, in this in consumer worldwide is it? Email and SMS. This is actually the down statement. So you can basically either you email the statement or SMS the alert to the customers about the transaction. Okay, it is not a statement about the transaction. Okay, so you can basically define your own standards and a specification in sending the email and SMS. SMS is a text message actually. Now here it is mentioned the prioritization. In the prioritization, if you see, we have done is requirement ID, requirement, sub requirement. Moscow is a one way of prioritization. Complexity is another way. Priority is mentioned. Status is in what stage it is and who is the owner. So we can also create a basically matrix for prioritization. So you know when you sort the data, you can basically can sort based on the priority. Okay. Now you have is basically requirement attributes. Oops, sorry. Traceability. The traceability, if you see, sorry, this is jumping. Traceability is, if you see, we have done the last time, but here it is a traceability is given in a slightly different way. It is based on the basically this the project life cycle. The unique numbers, the BR number means unique business requirement number, functional activity, how where they are associated with, and a requirement description, and then prototype. In the prototype it is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, these are the requirement, and then they are in the development, so which how they are, and in the testing phase. Okay, so what is completed. So this will give you a glance about how the requirements are traced in different stages. Okay. Let's basically talk about the all right, this one is oops, it's just stopped, just give me 1 second. Okay, you want to leave now. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now this is a BRD document. If you see business requirement document, I'll explain at this stage. And this is the current version, the document history, current version, owner, last updated, and last updated data, last updated, and who has updated, last updated by whom, author, date, creation and approved by, and approval date. Revision history, version number. Oh, you cannot see, I'm sorry. Can you see now? All right, sorry about that. Here it is, the business requirement document. This is, let me just reduce this one actually so that you will get to see properly. Okay, this is a business requirement document for the practice, and this is a document history, current version, owner, date last updated, and last updated by whom, author, date created, approved by, and approval date. You can fill out this information. Revision history talks about the version number, date approved, revision author who has revised, and brief description of the changes, why the changes were incorporated. So this is a revision history, is very important part of the document, which will give you the exact history about how the document has evolved over a period of time. Then is your table of content you can add. Then you have comes to your the introduction of your project, the problem or the opportunity, that is your business need which you have captured, you can put it here. System scope, you can add the high level features and functionalities. Reference, any reference document you have used basically for creating this document, so that you can add. The business users and the systems, you can give a description, and along with that you can also fill out this table. The table shows you here the business user role and the user group, location, subject matter expert, technical knowledge, preferred environment, background, other observation. This is nothing but stakeholder analysis information. You remember we have created the stakeholder list and their additional attributes. So this is what exactly about stakeholder details. Then comes to your definition and acronyms. You can add whatever the definition and acronyms you have used in the document. Then you have is basically the business requirement and features to be process design. So you can, we have created this standard the box where you can capture the requirement. For example, requirement ID, requirement type, and use case number. Then you can add the description about the requirement. Rational means you have to justify why the requirement is important or needed. Then source of the requirement and the source department. Source, you can write down the person and the department, or and then along with the person you must write the role also. If the person is changed or moved, then you can, whoever the next person comes in that role, you can add the names. Acceptance and fit criteria, what is the success criteria, what it should achieve, or what should be the end state after completion, so that you can add. For example, fund is transferred. So what do you mean by fund transfer? You get the transaction ID, then you will have the accounts are updated, and the transaction details are transferred. So transaction detail means you're talking about transaction ID, amount, from and whom, from and to, and then the time and date. Okay, that will be there. Global or local, if the requirement is local you can add local, if it is a global then you can add. Specify IO means input and output, what data was input and what was the output data. Priority, you can write down high, medium, low, or you can put the parameter, or you can quantify 0 to 10 or 0 to 5. Okay, and change history, if there is any history associated with that you can add. Okay, let's look into the other part of the document. Here you can capture some assumption and constraint. In the constraint you can also add some business constraint or technical constraint, both you can do that. And this is a section you can add a design constraint. Okay, now let me show you the actual the sample document which we have created for. Okay, this is information actually we keep captured. I guess it is a BRD. Let me just check. Oh, this is a function requirement document. Okay, unfortunately, let me just check. Okay, just give me 1 second. Yes, this is a BRD template actually. So I thought there is a one template which was this is a practice template. Oh, I use the practice template. Okay, this is the one which already filled out here. I am supposed to use this to explain. What did I do? Okay, it's not much. Okay, this is the one. So you use this as a reference purpose. This is your the online banking solution business requirement document, a sample document we created. And if you see the document information, all the information filled out like a current version 1.0 owner and date updated, last date updated by whom, author, who are the authors are there, date created and approved by, and approval date. So this is how your document information is captured. Then on the next page, the revision history. Revision history is not mentioned here, although you capture the revision number, date updated, revision, author, and brief description. But document approval history is captured here. For example, the role is CTO, name Mr. Milind Shah, signature, and this is and so date he has approved. Okay, so this is something which you can capture. In this, you can have a list of other stakeholders also whose information you need to capture, and also signature. Okay. Now content, it is a table of content mentioned here, but the page number is not there because this document is part of the other documents, so the page number is not taken. Okay. Now this is an introduction about the project, and this is simply talking about why the project is important and what is opportunity the bank has for implementing the online banking solution. Then here user problem and the project background is captured here. What is a growth expected, and the how the industry is changing and why this becomes important for the bank to implement. Okay. Then this talks about the product and solution scope. In this scope, we have captured the scope as a first it is described here, then this captured in the diagrams. What is the scope here? That is a solution overview is given for the audience to read and understand, and then it is also mentioned in the form of features and functionalities. If you see, these are the high level features: login, transact, account view, and request. And in this the login, there are two requirements are there. Transact is interbank and intrabank. Account view is account summary and statement of transaction. Request is order, checkbook, and stop payment, email notifications, and nominations and demand draft. Then if you see, there is a phases which mentioned in what phase we will be implementing which requirements. In the phase 1, pretty much 3 requirements are basically handled: login, transact, account view, and phase 2 is a request. Then what is included in the scope and what is excluded in the scope, so it is clearly specified, so the readers will know what is the scope of the solution. And reference some documents are mentioned here. These are some hypothetical documents we mentioned here. Then this is basically nothing but a kind of a requirement catalog, but information is slightly different. If you see the name, designation, their number, location, subject matter expert, technical knowledge, preferred environment, and RACI. RACI is basically, if you remember and recollect, we talked about RACI. It can be RACI or RASCI. Okay, so that is responsible, accountable, supports, consulted, and informed. So depending on the person's role, you can assign the RACI factor. Here in the for the Milinsha is responsible for the particular project. Okay, so is Wendy Smith. She's operations. She need to be informed. Ankush Shah, he's a VP project management. He's accountable. If anything goes wrong, he will be responsible. That's why he's accountable here. So that's all the stakeholders are captured. Now in the definition and acronyms, if you see, that is CBS, core banking solution. IPIN is basically internet banking, internet personal identification number. So we have captured some definition acronyms, because if these are used in the document, so the readers may not know, especially if you are hiring the vendors to complete the job. So the one who is not familiar with your organization, so they may not be able to comprehend. So that's why we need to create a glossary, okay, or where we maintain all the definition and acronyms. Then it comes to your business services and the processes. So we have described a fund transfer process, and this is a diagram what we have created. It is a swim lane, okay. You see here how the information is moving. Customer is login, then you have online banking interface, and these are handling these activities. Then you have is core banking basically solution. Let me just say 300. The moment you change, then yes, now it is much more visible. Then if you see, core banking solution will handle some part of the process, and that is mentioned here. For example, if it is same bank, yes, then you can generate and update the file, right? And if it is no, then you have to basically capture the fund transfer request, something like that. So that is talking about what central bank role is: validate the fund transfer if it is interbank, generate the response file if the update, and then that should be update file connected to the update file. So these are the different functions handled by different the parties, and which have been captured here. Okay. Then we have talked about business rules. So some of the business rules are mentioned here. Like, let me just increase this so you can see this one. Like, for example, if you see here, minimum transaction amount has to be USD $1, and maximum amount allowed is up to USD 1 million. So beyond that you cannot transfer online. Okay. Okay, so all this can be mentioned. Now this same box what you have seen here, the information is captured here. Requirement ID, requirement type, whether it is a must to have, critical requirement, or the business requirement. Use case ID, it is mentioned. Description of the process is mentioned here. Rationale is provided. So you can basically go through this one. I will go through that fund transfer only rather than going through other requirement. Okay, online fund transfer. Requirement ID BR004. Requirement type must to have, critical requirement. Use cases UCA004. Description of process: customer should be provided the facility of online fund transfer to other accounts, either within the same bank using the fund transfer, or an account with some other bank using NEFT, RTGS, and IMPS mode. This is a type of transfer. Rational: with advent of different modes of electronic transfers of funds, customers need not visit the branch and may insist carry on the transfer using online mode. It also reduces a load on the front office branch to process the request in case the customer visits the branch. Source: Global Banking Limited's Manual on Payment Processing. Source document: GBL Payment Processing Manual 1.1, Central Banking's Rules and Regulation on the Payment Processing. So both we have used as a source document. Acceptance and fit criteria: access based on authorized login, and transfer should be allowed to a registered beneficiary account only. So you can't just transfer to any account. Global or local, it is global. Required input: transfer type, amount, beneficiary account. Output: debit to the customer account, and inclusion of the transaction in the file to be sent to the central bank. Priority high, changes first draft dated so and so date. So this is how we captured the information in a structured way. Okay, so this is your BRD part. Then if you see next level after all this completion, so we have is next part is reporting requirements. So every solution will have some reporting requirements. So we have mentioned here, I think, 4 reporting requirement. For example, exception reports for the failed transaction should be generated, right? exception report for the wrong login attempts, so that you can basically see the security related issues. Then you have is a solution facility non-function requirement, and these are the solution facilitators. Okay, so for example, in the non-function requirement talks about the performance, security, and volume, what it's supposed to handle, all those things, are an audit trail and all. So if you see here, it talks about audit trail here. This talks about the volume per day. Okay, so like that, the all the non-functional requirements are captured here. Then comes to the assumption and constraint. So these are the assumptions what we have mentioned, and these are design constraint. For example, the first one, online banking service will be made available for both existing as well as new customers. That's the assumption. 5.1, the necessary application forms are as per the various operation manual, and no changes have been carried out since the last published documents mentioned as a reference document. So we are using the latest information. Then it comes to a centralized glossary where you are defining the acronyms here. Okay, so actually there is also one part is you can put it here if you want as approval process. So this is your BRD, which again, as I talked about, the template is basically generic one. The organization may have a specific templates, they may have more than this the items in the template, or they may have a less, depending on the need and depending on the project type. Okay, and depending on their frameworks and the governance policies. Okay.